Yes. So as we have several participants here who don't speak Swedish, I will also have the presentation in English, inshallah. So far, a warm welcome to the Shifaa Institute lecture series that we have during Ramadan. Every Sunday we meet here, where one of our fantastic colleagues gives a lecture with a theme related to health and well-being based on an Islamic perspective. We hope you all are having a beautiful Ramadan, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your fasting and all your good deeds. My name is Jenny, and I will be the host during this today's lecture. I myself am a member of the Shifaa Institute, where I, among other things, sits in the board and also are part of different committees. We are very happy that there is so many of you that have shown interest to want to attend to our lectures, and it's truly an honor to meet all of you and share this moment together with you. We would like everyone to unmute themselves so we doesn't get disturbed during the lecture. So if everyone can just see if they are unmute, we would really appreciate it. We also want to thank you for the opportunity for be able to spread knowledge through our lectures and also show all the different perspectives that exist in health and how different professions can work together with health focused in different ways, which is exactly what we in the Shifaa Institute want to promote and create in what we call kind of health platform for and by Muslims, where different professions meet and work together to promote good health for Muslims. Today, Shifaa Institute has local chapters or committees in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland, and soon inshallah also in Finland. The Shifaa Institute is also part of the international organization ISIP, International Students of Islamic Psychology, which has committees in about 30 countries and members in over 90 countries all over the world. So that gives also us a very unique opportunity, as we can use international resources that may benefit Muslims locally here in Scandinavia and the Nordic countries. And by targeting all of the Scandinavia and the Nordic countries, we also connect Muslims to a larger and stronger community and knowledge. And with our international support, there is an opportunity to offer help based on a broader experience and background, inshallah. And the Shifaa Institute's approach to health we have a holistic approach where we work from a holistic perspective. We are trying to change the perspective that is the norm in the traditional Western context of how to work with health promotion efforts. And we believe that we need to depart from that narrative that health is reduced to only touching a certain specific area, and instead increase the understanding that health should be connected to several aspects that have to do with both the human's internal and external factors. And with that, we want to promote the normalization of issues related to mental health, social health, physical and spiritual health within the whole Muslim Ummah through Scandinavia and all the Nordic countries. And there is, you can call it 4 different legs, the mental, the social, the physical and the spiritual health. And that is also something that you will get a taste of during this Ramadan series. Like last week, we had a lecture about the psychology of Ramadan, and this week we'll focus more on the social spiritual health with the architecture that our dear sister Marwa will talk about. And those of you who are interested in getting involved with the Shifaa Institute are very welcome to contact us both on social media or by email. I will share our contact information in the chat during and after the lecture. So please join us and get in contact with us, even if you only have questions. Yeah, and as I said, it's extremely fun to see that you are so many that are passionate and interested in health issues and healing, and the entire Shifaa Institute really want to thank all of you for your commitment and for being here today. And just a brief on practical things to think about during the lecture. As I asked before, please mute your microphones during the lecture so that the background noise doesn't disturb. And after the lecture, we will open up to a Q&A. Question can be asked during the lecture in the chat, but you can also raise your hand after the lecture. And now we will turn our focus to today's lecture and say a very big warm welcome to our second lecture on the series, who will be given by Marwa Dabaieh. I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrong. Her lecture is Transcendental, Tranquility and Spiritual Architecture. Mashallah, it's such a beautiful name on a lecture. Marwa is a professor and architect and a biogeometry practitioner, very hard word. Her expertise is in sustainable and environmentally conscious architecture. She has worked for the last 20 years in the field of zero emission and passive earth buildings, sustainable architecture conservation, climate responsive design, and climate neutral architecture design. She received her bachelor degree in architecture from Egypt and then earned a master's degree in environmental architecture design and planning, followed by a doctoral degree in conservation of vernacular architecture from Lund University here in Sweden. Her research focuses in passive and carbon neutral low-tech vernacular methods and their adaptation for contemporary energy efficient and zero carbon building practice. Mainly, she tends to apply transdisciplinary approaches in her research, work following a human-centered participatory design method. And she sits as a vice president for the ICOMOS, Vernacular Architecture Scientific Committee, and the Swedish voting member for Energy Efficiency and Sustainable Committee. And she is also an expert member for the Earth and Architecture Scientific Committee, mashallah. Marwa has published over 80 manuscripts. She has wrote 5 books and edited 4. She lectures in the fields of vernacular architecture, sustainable and environmental design, energy efficient buildings, zero emission design, carbon neutral architecture, sustainable conservation design, and build with natural materials. As a practitioner, she participated in several design projects in Egypt, in the MENA-region, and in Europe. And she is going to present today the connection between the architecture and the spirituality from ancient time to contemporary. She will share insights on how our homes can be a source of spiritual tranquility, then enhance transcendental connection. So, mashallah, thank you so much, Marwa, for being here with us today. And we give you a very much welcome. So, jazakallah khair for being here.
Hi, welcome, dear Yani. Thank you so much. Highly appreciate that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-mursalin sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Thank you so much for the very extensive introduction, dear Yani, and thanks for all the efforts that you are doing with this Ramadan lecture series, together with all the team who are facilitating this weekly lectures, together with all like the media and communication efforts that all the team is doing, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for the audience. I hope you are doing well and your fasting is going perfect. You know, enjoying the spirituality, Ramadan spirituality in general. I appreciate that you give the time to come and join this lecture. I know Ramadan time is very precious time. So I hope, inshallah, you will benefit from this lecture, and it will be useful for you also to apply some of the insights and tips that we will use today, inshallah. Yeah, I will share screen. We have been trying to check the sound. I have a small video in one of the slides, but apparently I can only hear it, but nobody else. But at least I hope, yeah, you can hear me and you can see the slides. So can you just give me a thumb up that you can see the slides? Or you see my screen?
Yes, we do, Marwa.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, so today's lecture, as Yanni kindly introduced, it will be around spiritual architecture and transcendental tranquility. So in this lecture, I will give a kind of a brief introduction about like how I came across this kind of topic and kind of my work within this issue related to architecture and spirituality. And then I will dive deeper into the application of different spiritual aspects related to architecture. And then I will end with a kind of tips and like to apply some of these tranquil applications in our home with a very kind of simple and hands-on way. So if I started with a quick introduction, I want to share with you my journey in vernacular architecture. And that is the word that Yanni mentioned kindly in the introduction. You heard it a couple of times that I work a lot with vernacular buildings and vernacular architecture. So for you who are to just like make it a kind of a popular science explanation, vernacular architecture is kind of, we call it architecture without architects. In another word, it can be in some countries, it's the traditional architecture, or it is the indigenous architecture, or it is the popular or local. For me, I call it the fitri architecture, the architecture that is connected to our instinct, where people in many parts of the world, they started to design and build their buildings. It can be homes, it can be spiritual buildings, or other public places. They designed and constructed those buildings using their kind of instinct. It's kind of a trial and error. They haven't been like to any technical education in order to be able to design and build this kind of architecture. Many times it's a kind of spontaneous way of design using available local material. And my interest is earthen architecture, which is one of the most common material all over the world, where for me is also part that is connected to our way of how we were like created. We were created from earth and we will go back to earth. So that's why earthen material is one of the material that is strongly connected to our human kind of instinct. So I started to study vernacular architecture in parts of the world, especially in Egypt, where I managed to see like how people practice their daily life around this vernacular practice. So for example, they maintain and they take care of their homes, they cast the mud bricks, they even like apply their like daily rituals, baking, olive oil juicing, and many more. All around the use of earth as a main material for all their life practices. That's why I was extremely interested in this material and tried to dig deeper into the use of vernacular architecture and how to learn lessons from this ancient wisdom in our contemporary practice. I did a lot of like workshops and trainings for like practitioners and for students and even for children. And I call it the thinking hands, how we can use earth as a fertile material in different construction techniques, and also how to make it a kind of a fitri way of design and construction that is connected to our body and to our soul. And here's one of the examples with my students in Egypt that we managed to construct a building using earthen material. So it's kind of a design and construction for the people, to the people, with the people, and by the people. So this is how we can also pay back to the society with this experience that we have in hand. And at the same time, we also learn from the society and from the local communities, from their experience and wisdom along the years. And then I became more fascinated with different type of spectacular vernacular, earthen vernacular, with connection to spirituality and like religious buildings. So here's one example in Mali. the great mosque of Dejane, where the locals, they actually also maintain the mosque regularly every year, all together as a kind of a festive event. So here's, unfortunately, I think you cannot hear the sound. Can we try again? Can you tell me if you can hear the sound, or you can just hear me?
Unfortunately, we can't hear, sister.
We can only hear me. Okay.
Yeah, we can only hear you.
So I can narrate a little bit around that. So here we can see like the situation of the mosque and how old it is since like the ancient times. And this mosque, you can see the crowd of people every year. They gather together in a kind of a cultural religious event, and they maintain the mosque together after the like annual rainy season. So they kept it in kind of a good, sustainable, adequate way. So this kind of direct connection to their religious places and spaces, and they volunteer, all of them, in this town in order to make it kind of possible to maintain the mosque and keep it in a good condition. And by the way, it's one of the mosques that got the Aga Khan Prize, which is one of the most prestigious architecture prize in the world. Okay, so if we dig deeper into all these lessons that we could learn about spirituality and architecture, we see how people used to actually intentionally design religious places, and I will focus, of course, on the Islamic religious places, the mosques. But I will also give a little bit of an introduction on how it started with the ancient Egyptian architecture, making spirituality a big, strong component in connection to architecture. So the common religious building in the ancient Egyptian times, or ancient Egyptian times, is that a temple. And the temple is designed in a way that is kind of a hierarchy of places and spaces where you get kind of filtered until you reach the most sacred part where you worship the God. And for us, of course, it's kind of lessons that we learned as Muslims when we designed our mosques, with this kind of filtering attitude, in order you reach the place where you pray when you are completely cleansed and ready to perform your prayers in a kind of a tranquil way. If we look also at some of the elements in architecture that help people to purify themselves until they reach the most sacred part where they meet their God, those obelisks, where are like those, as if they are like long columns in the entrance of the temples, they were amplifiers, where underneath there are secret spots with positive energy, and those kind of obelisks are constructed using kind of precious stones, natural stones, that had a high amount of quartz, which can emit this kind of energy in this entrance space. So people, when they are entering to the temple, they are able to purify themselves before they enter a sacred place to worship their God. If we look at Islamic architecture, more or less it's the same concept of purifying yourself before you enter the mosque. If we take Ibn Tulun Mosque in Egypt as an example, you will see here the design of the mosque. You have around the main mosque space, or the mosque like main building, there is an area, we called it ziyadas, where here you kind of disconnect yourself from the busyness of life. Majority of the mosques, they are constructed in the most busy spot in the city. So that's why it's extremely important that you could disconnect yourself in order to meet your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can purify yourself in a kind of a gradual way before you start to perform your prayers in this area, which is towards the Qibla. So this is the area, the first purification zone. You can see can you see my cursor, right? When I point to some places in the photo?
Yes, we can, sister.
Perfect. So here to the far right corner, we can see the wall. This is the first kind of shelter from the right side to the city, and then you purify yourself in this gradual purification until you reach the first wall of the mosque. Let me explain it a little bit better here. When you enter from the first door of the mosque, you arrive here to this kind of arcade area, where also it's another second layer of purification. So you quitted the busyness part of the market space or marketplace, or generally speaking, like the dunya life, and then you start here with a second layer of purification with these arcades, where almost you don't hear the noise from outside, because of also the material, which is here is clay, had a very good quality when it comes to acoustics, so it also purify and filter the sound from outside. Another thing that enhance also spirituality is the calligraphy, that along the way, when you walk in the arcades, your eye came across different like Islamic codes or ayahs from different surahs in the Quran. So you also get engaged somehow with your eyes and with your mind and with your tongue in the way before you enter the main courtyard of the mosque. And here you can find the arcades where you start the purification closer to the purification process until you reach the main sahn area, where you have this ablution zone where you do the wudu or the ablution, where you again another layer of cleansing. So this is considered like the final cleansing layer when you start making your wudu or making your ablution. And also for your information, when they put those places where you have the water source, it's important to know that generally they choose one of the kind of power spots where there's a lot of positive energy in this kind of water, where they start to put the structure, this dome structure on top to kind of define the area where you make the wudu. In all times when they decide to choose a spot, generally for a mosque, especially a mosque, they actually bring several pieces of meat, and then they put it on different places, and they see when this piece of meat will get rotten first, and then they avoid this space. The piece that stay in a good condition for a long time, then that means that this place is good in air quality, is good in soil, and is good also in positive energy underneath. Another thing also, when they have like a water source, they look at the animals, birds or like different kind of animals, and then they see when, especially when one of the animals is hurt or had a wound, and they go to those water spots and they start to heal around those water spots. So that means this water had also high quality of energy. And subhanAllah, animals, they have with their instinct a way to define good places and bad places. For example, if you have a cat at home, try to avoid the places where this cat is sitting, because cats, they actually like to sit on a negative energy spot. While a dog, if they are trained, if you tell them sit in a specific place, they know that this place is not good. So they start to move slowly until they settle in a place where it's stable energy or a good positive energy. Horses, for example, are also one of the good animals that can detect at good spots for energy. And then here comes like the place where you can understand like this gradual filtering or gradual purification until you reach the Qibla part, which is the far end of the mosque, when you are completely purified after having your ablution, when you are completely cleansed, and then you start performing your prayers in a kind of a tranquil and calm way, where you have the most focus and concentration. Here also to share with you a story. When this mosque was constructed, it's Ibn Tulun Mosque again, the name. The Sultan or the king at that time, he asked one of the architects to design a mosque that if the whole Cairo as a city is flooded due to the flooding come with the river Nile, this mosque will survive. If it's caught on fire, if there's a big fire in the city, this mosque will still survive. And if there's a big earthquake, this mosque will also still survive. So apart from the common nature of constructing several mosques, they of course they choose the most spiritual spot where it's a lot of positive energy in the ground. They also choose mountains or hills where we normally know that the connection on top of a hill or on top of a mountain is the one of the places that is maximum purification, because the nature of the mountains, they are the stabilizers on earth. So normally, like the energy on top of the mountain is at its peak. And that's why from our sunnah that we are advised to go and visit mountains and make kind of cleansing and a spiritual connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the most interesting, the sacred places where he used to go and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was in a mountain, in a cave inside a mountain. So here, the designer or the architect, he has decided to choose this hill or a small mountain in Cairo, where it's high level, apart from, again, the spirituality part, and high level where if there is a flooding, it will be safe. And he designed it in a way using earth bricks, which is one of the most fertile, again, and material that's connected to our body and soul. And he designed it with this kind of bricks that when the building is shaken, it can move flexibly because it's interlocked together. So it will move and come back without causing any cracks or collapse. And it's already burned bricks. So if it's caught on fire, it will not be affected that much. In mix, of course, with also unburned bricks. So it will take time to burn and then it will start to deteriorate. So that is one of the things that the designer or the architect at that time thought of while they were designing and constructing this mosque. Another mosque, which is Sultan Hassan Mosque, which is one of the also prominent mosques in Cairo. And here the choice for this mosque is also to show you how the designer managed to create a zone here, which is the main entrance, in order to purify the worshippers before they enter the main mosque. You can see here, this is the far end where you have the mihrab, where you pray here. And this is the courtyard where you have the fountain for wudu or ablution. And here is the entrance place. So in order to get here, you have like a long journey in order to get to this place. So why also this entrance is bent this way, why it's not like straight, the whole land was empty, why the architect or the designer decided to have this with this angle. That's also one way in order to purify the worshipper before they enter the mosque with this kind of bent entrance as a sign that you are now disconnecting yourself from, again, the business, the life, the dunya, and then you are getting into a purification journey until you meet your Lord and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we looked at the entrance, you will see here this, we call them squinches. In Arabic, they're called muqarnas. So those are considered energy emitters. In their design, they are pointed to towards the earth, where the design itself are considered energy emitters, and again with the type of material that is used here, which is natural stone, again with kind of the composition of the stone itself had a quartz in it, so it also acts as a purification and cleansing material, like when we use like a natural stone, when it helps also to resonate with our body and purify the energy that we get from the surrounding areas. And here you can see the bent entrance. This is when you enter, and then you take another route in order to enter the mosque, where again, this kind of like journey that purifies you until you reach the main sahn, or the main courtyard of the mosque. Here is a close shot for those squinches, where you can see here they are towards like the end of every single constellation of those squinches. You have this emitter, where this is considered as energy emitter, which helps in purification, as if you are showered with this energy somehow. And again, when you enter here, you the same idea of having this water well with its purification impact until you reach the main Iwan for the Qibla. One of the most interesting things in Islamic architecture is the geometrical patterns, where they act actually again as also ways to help us increase the spirituality of the place. And why this? You can see the pattern somehow, if you look deeper in it, you will find that it gives you the motion to anti-clockwise. Majority of those patterns, they give you this notion of anti-clockwise. If you look at here, it's also as if it's rotating in this direction. And if you focus on why it's anti-clockwise, it's the way when we like do the tawaf around the Kaaba. We do it in this pattern. So those geometrical shapes, they also create this kind of spiral form towards motion. Let me say it in a correct way, which is the motion towards the anti-clockwise direction. And this is where you increase the spirituality. And one tip, many of the like scholars, they do when they drink, for example, you know, like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ encouraged us to have water with honey. So when they put the honey in the water, they keep stirring it in anti-clockwise. And many of them, they try to make it like also 7 circles in order to mimic the tawaf times that we do around the Kaaba. Here you can see the different geometrical shapes and the geometrical patterns, which again do this kind of spiritual motion around the anti-clockwise direction. And here the combination with the color, the material, and the pattern. So in Islamic architecture, the colors were of course inspired from nature, and majority are like earthen colors and blue colors from the sky, and of course the reflection of the sky color to on the water. So those were the main colors that is used in many of the spiritual buildings. Many of them, they managed to show high level of perfection, where they actually used different constellations of colors, forms, and shapes, where again the dome itself as a form is a source of 3 different waves: the higher harmonics of gold, and the higher harmonics of ultraviolet, and the higher harmonics of negative green. And science has proved that the form of the dome, the center of it, produced this kind of waves, and this helps also in purification, and it helps in cleansing. Those are kind of similar to radioactive waves. You don't see the waves, but you feel their impact. When you sit under a dome, or you pray under a dome, you get this kind of purification. And if you remember the place where the water fountain is placed, and it's covered with a dome, and that is also the shape itself of the dome act as a purification shape. So while you are doing the washing or the wudu, you also get purified and you get cleansed. So again, the form, the shape, I mean the architecture form or the geometrical form, the shape, the color, and the pattern affect the spirituality. Here, one of the examples in Alhambra in Granada, in Spain. And here it's showing the complexity of using all of these together. You can see again the squinches where they act as emitters, purifying emitters. You see the calligraphy, the phrases from Quran. You see the pattern, you see the form, also the arch as a form from its center, a source for emitting, again, the ultraviolet, the negative green, and the higher harmonics of gold. So all of those are waves that help in purification when you enter and you cross from one place to another. And they have been used also in residential areas. So it's also a way that transfer this kind of practices in different homes and spaces in order to amplify the use for spirituality, not only in worship places like mosques, but also in residential areas, especially the palace for the ruler, where they believe at that time that in order for the ruler to rule the country in a kind of a fair way, it has to be like designed also on a sacred spot. And the architecture itself, it helps in purification, and it helps in having this kind of a tranquil feeling, so they can rule the country in a fair way. One extra layer is the use of light. And this is an example from Taj Mahal in India, where you can see here the importance of having double the impact using the light. So when you have the pattern and you have the light coming from behind, you multiply the impact of the pattern on the spirituality of the place. So our ancestors, they were so creative and so talented in that way that they try to multiply as much as possible the effect and the impact of every single pattern that they used. So you can see here in Taj Mahal to the left, it's the marble with its impact as material, it's the pattern, and it's the impact of light. So even if the patterns are different, so you have a pattern over a pattern that amplify again the spiritual feeling. And Taj Mahal it wasn't a mosque, it's a place where like kind of a memorial for like the wife of the king at that time. So he also wanted to make it possible for people to increase their spiritual feeling and pray for his wife when they come and visit her mausoleum. This is another example in Iran, in Nasr al-Mulk Mosque in Shiraz, where you can see the excellence in using different colors, forms, shapes, and material in order to enhance the feeling of tranquility. But some scholars, they said like too much of this use of different colors and patterns, it distracts you while you are praying, and that's of course true. And that's why even like during the Prophet Muhammad time and the ancestors sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other like the closer to his time, it was very minimalistic, and they were very using like very basic patterns. But along the centuries, Muslim scholars, Muslim artists, Muslim builders, they were like improving the architecture and getting inspiration from the places where Islam like entered those places. So it was a mix between the Islamic rituals and Islamic tradition together with the local culture and local tradition in the place. So here it was the marriage and mix between the tradition of the place where Islam entered and the Islam as a religion itself. So the excellence and the kind of sophisticated way they designed and they constructed their mosques were showing also how you can amplify spirituality in different ways, as you can see here with the colors and with the patterns. And we also need to mention that also acoustics and sound is one way to enhance spirituality in places. And domes are one of the geometrical forms and architecture shapes that amplify also the spirituality because of the amplification for the sound without kind of doubling the echo, because you need the echo to be sent in one direction and come back to you without having this kind of dissonance. Otherwise, you'll get like the flow of the word in a way that if there is a khutbah, if there is a kind of spiritual speech, if you get this in an unharmonized echo, you will not be able to understand anything. So also again, like they were very aware of the fact that the design of a dome with all this kind of again of corner squinches or corner triangles and the arches were together as a constellation. They help in like amplifying the sound, and it can reach from the place where the person who's giving the speech is speaking to a far place at the far end of the mosque. In old times, there were no speakers. like today, where you can transmit the sound from one zone to another. So imagine with their knowledge and experience and this kind of trial and error, they managed to reach this sophisticated design, even when it comes to acoustics. And here again, another example from Iran, and this is the ceiling of the Shah Mosque. And here there are different calligraphy in the dome ring. And you can see here also the patterns from the windows and the light emitted from the windows, the geometrical shapes, the patterns, the squinches, and the dome shape. And the central part of the dome is even amplified with this kind of crystal lantern. And again, it's a crystal, so it's also amplify the energy coming from the very high vortex of the dome. So all of these kind of layers amplify spirituality in spiritual places or in religious places.
Recording in progress.
Here comes the last part, which is the tranquil home, and how we can have or how we can use some tips from ancient and indigenous spiritual architecture for our contemporary way of living in order to enhance a place where we can pray and hopefully have the high level of khushu' and concentration. So there are 6 simple steps that we can follow, which is color, or choosing of colors, and try to achieve comfort using lighting, greenery, fragrance, and then you personalize it according to your taste. So I will take you through quick ideas. The first one, which is space. So you identify a quiet space at home. It's not necessarily that's a big place, even if you have small space, which is just 60 centimeter times 60 centimeter, which is exactly what you need. Because if you measure your width from here, the average is 60 centimeters. Most people can be more wider or smaller. But this is the space, even when we design mosques, we design it, the place where you pray, this small area where you stand is with this kind of dimension 60 times 1 and 1.5 meters. So identify a zone, even if it's small, which is quiet in your space, in your home place, and try to make it comfy as much as possible by adding maybe cushions or adding like deep piled carpet and anything that can make it more soft where you can sit and lay down if you want, especially when you're reading Quran. And try to choose the adequate light that is needed for your like reading, or even when you have like time when you do Taraweeh and you have the Mus'haf when you try to read. You can add lamps with soft light, and you can increase the intensity of the light based on the need for reading. Or if you're just sitting and you're making dhikr or tasbih, so you can use even softer and less strong light. So you can able also to focus at the same time. Add greenery to the best you can. Add plants because they remind us with the Allah's creation, and also the color of greenery is a peaceful color and helps also in concentration and focus. And I want to give you a tip. If this zone is in your bedroom, try to choose plants that produce oxygen at night. Many of us know the fact that yes, the plants, they take oxygen during day and they emit carbon at night. But there are actually, subhanAllah, plants that also they emit oxygen even in the evening at night. So some names like snake plant or aloe vera, yes, and peace lily. Those are just names for those who can produce oxygen at night, and you can search for many more. Here, you, just to show you like different ways of having light, either from the ceiling or in the corner. And of course, you can use natural light when it's possible. You can use candles as well. And when it comes to fragrance, spray perfume or atr. And each one of us, they have their own favorite smell or fragrance. For me, like when I use misk, I remember like the haram, because they use misk in many places, or musk, as they call it in English. And then you personalize it. It can be with whatever kind of decorative elements that you want, and try, of course, to make it as simple and humble as possible and minimalistic. And of course, you can escalate and make it more complicated as you want. Choose the colors that suits you and the style that suits you. add, of course, extra decorative elements like a prayer mat or beautiful artwork and calligraphy and crystals and many more that makes it more personalized and makes it like close to you and to your taste. Yeah, so the final message is make it simple and make it cozy to the best you can, and inshallah you can enjoy a tranquil and peaceful time while you are doing your taraweeh, you are doing your even prayers 5 times a day, or you are sitting and reciting Quran or doing dhikr. And I remember a friend of mine, she said like every corner in your home where you usually sit and recite Quran or you do dhikr, the angels are waiting for you every day in this place because they want to hear you reciting Quran or they want to hear you while you are doing your dhikr. So try to have this place where you're in, the angels are waiting for you every day. And also try to have Quran in the place, in your home played. I know there is, of course, we know like if you have Quran played, you have to listen and with concentration. But there are other scholars, they said like it's for like protection, for tahsin, and for enhancing the quality of the place. It's okay that you can have Quran as in the place, but of course you shouldn't be talking or you're having like the television on. But even if it's around you, it's good. But of course you can ask your sheikh and make your own like decision. I'm just like sharing what I know. And one also important tip that, subhanallah, even things that we think they are solid and they are not like they don't have feelings like animals, or as human, for like humans and animals, they don't have feeling, they don't like feel you. But even every single molecule of every solid element in your apartment or your house or any building, they actually get affected by the recitation of Quran. Because that's another branch of science, which is physics of quality. But to cut it short and to make it simple, just the quality of the sound that is emitted from Quran or from dhikr or from dua, it affects the quality of the space. And that's why in mosques, even if it's not the time of prayer, in many mosques, when you enter them, you feel like with this sakina, this tranquility, because of the layers of time people prayed there, made supplication, the call for adhan, the call for prayers, and reciting Quran had been like attached to the space for like as a layers and layers and layers for many years. And this is what makes it kind of relieving and calming and peaceful space, because of this impregnation. We call it impregnation, like when a material is impregnated with a certain kind of wave or energy a long time. Yeah, so as simple as it can be in a small corner in your apartment, and it can be another functional corner, but you have some material that you unfold and you use it as a praying space, and then you can use the space later on for another functions at home. So depending on the space that you can offer in your apartment, hopefully you can find this tranquil and safe space and zone where you can practice your prayers and your rituals in a kind of a tranquil way, inshallah. So that was it for me today. Sorry, it went longer than I wanted, because I wanted to have some more time for questions. But feel free to share your thoughts, your reflections, and your questions. Just also to mention, like all of this is just my own interpretation from what I have read and what I have studied along the years, like ancient architecture, Islamic architecture. And if there is any mistake, it's solely mine. So I take all full responsibility for all the information I shared with you today. Yeah, and I hope it was beneficial for you. And I'm open for any questions, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sister Marwa. We are extremely grateful to have you with us tonight. Mashallah, thank you so much. It was really an amazing and insightful lecture, and thank you for sharing your knowledge. May Allah reward you. Barakallahu fikum. And also a big thank you to all of you who taken the time and showing your interest in today's lecture. We really appreciate it. And if you have not already asked questions in the chat, you can also raise your hand. I see that some of you have already. I will let you know very soon when it's your turn. And if you want to ask question in Swedish, that is also okay. And I would try to translate it, inshallah. And again, very, very much thank you to you, dear Sister Marwa. So just, I will, there is a participant who has numbers 46722. If you would like to ask your questions, please go ahead.
I think it's me. I'm not totally sure. Salaam alaikum. Jazakallah khairan, Marwa. It was a fantastic presentation. It was really interesting. May Allah reward you for your effort. I have the question about this. You talk a lot about this with positive energy and about the different materia that they affects us. I have never heard about this in Islam before. I have always connected this to other things, like more with Buddhism and Hinduism and maybe yoga and this kind. So I was amazed to hear that you were mentioning this. And is it like a lot of talking about this in Islam? And is it any place where you can find information about this? Because this really was interesting, new thing for me. Thanks. Jazakallah khairan.
Dear sister, thank you so much for the kind words. Appreciate it. And thank you for the kind dua. I echo it for you as well. I think it's a very interesting question because there is always misconception between all the ancient beliefs and rituals, as you mentioned, the Hinduism and Buddhism and many more. And all those philosophies like Feng Shui, Zen, Vastu, that also talk a lot about energy. In Islam, of course, the energy is something that is rooted in our Sunnah. Even like the energy that you get from the people around you, if they are like positive people, you're affected. Like your body is kind of sensitive, and it receives this kind of connection from the people around you, and you can get actually harmed or benefited from the energy that the people can give to you. If they are kind of sending out positive energy or sending out negative energy, your body can be affected by it. And that's why, subhanAllah, we do this protection for ourselves every morning with Askar al-Sabah and every afternoon with Askar al-Masa. When we in our hands we recite al-Mawadatain and Qul Huwallahu Ahad, and then we move our hands around our body. So that is a part of cleansing. That is a part of adding a layer of positive energy to our body and cleanse ourselves from negative energy that you get from a lot of things around you. It can be from when you are in the market, and that's why we have a dua when we enter the market, because the market had a lot of negative energy because of the business and because of the buying and selling and all these kind of things. So you protect yourself, you protect your energy by and to also ask Allah to help you to make the right decision when you buy something. So you purify yourself, you cleanse yourself, and you provide yourself with this positive energy by doing this kind of dua and doing this kind of cleansing, as I said. So positive energy is part of our practices and rituals in Islam, but we do it, of course, in a way that is according to our Islamic practices. We are not doing it like other Hindus and other Buddhist or other practices. And when it comes to the place, yes, and also in Islam, because it's before Islam, it is something that it is well known in different cultures. When it comes to choosing the right spot and choosing the right water place and water space, by observing, as I said, that animals and birds, where they go, and then the people understand that this is the right place and the right spot where you can go and visit or drink from this water, like Zamzam water, for example, with its wonderful quality and wonderful energy it brings. And I did an experiment with he passed away a couple of years ago, Masaru Emoto. He's a Japanese scientist. We took several samples from water crystals, and he made a test on the quality of the crystal of these different water samples. One of them was Zamzam water, and one of them was a water that we recited Quran on, and one with only Al-Fatiha, one with only like more phrases about Jannah and about like the hereafter, and one we said only Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and one we said like hate words, bad words, like I don't love you or I hate you. And we made like microscopic images from those water crystals. If you are interested, I can send you later links about this, or you can just Google Mazaru Imoto and you see like how pure the crystals were when it was from Zamzam water, or from the water that we recited Quran on, or from the water where we had just said Bismillah. So this is a kind of an energy that is also transmitted to our body. And we know that our body had over 80%, if I'm not mistaken, 80% liquid. And that's why having water, for example, when you recite dhikr or Quran, or just say Bismillah, it adds a positive energy and quality to it. And why we say Bismillah before we do anything, why before eating or before performing any act or any work, this is adding energy and adding, of course, we add Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything. But to simplify it, it's an extra layer of positive energy that you add with everything by having Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on board of all your acts of, for like even from eating and drinking and so on. And you mentioned like books that mention this, especially when you choose places. Yes, there are several books also from Islamic perspective. I can also send some extra links later on, and we can share it on the Shifaa platform for those who registered in this lecture, where it is mentioned how in ancient times and during Islamic time they chose the places where it's the best for having the mosque, the best for having the market, the best for having the palace for the ruler, and so on and so forth. I hope I managed to cover your question, and feel free to come back if you have still more questions.
Yes, I only got one thinking about this. When Muhammad sallam, he came to Medina, he let his camel choose the spot where to put the mosque. Is this one part of this?
Exactly. Thank you so much for reminding me with this story. And this is where the camel sits on the most positive spot that is possible to use for building. So thank you so much for reminding us with this story.
MashaAllah,
so that's one tool. Horses and camels are very good animals to detect good positive spots. SubhanAllah.
Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you.
Sister, thank you so much.
SubhanAllah. There is a question, a very similar question in the chat. I don't know if it's the same person, but maybe you already answer it. But it's Assalamu alaikum, beautiful lecture. Jazakallah khair. I noticed you mentioned energies a lot and gave examples of crystals as part of creating a spiritual space. I have only heard this as a part of other faiths and not really as part of Islamic architecture planning of spaces. Are there any evidence for this?
Yeah, I think it's the same questions, and yeah, hopefully we managed to give some several evidence on this.
Yeah. So there is another person. I found Imam. You may ask a question, inshallah.
This is me. I am so proud to hear these golden words and golden information coming from such a good person like you, Dr. Marwa. And when you said about make a place in your home for recitation and put it in the right way with about colors, fragrance, and lighting and greenery. You added that recitation of Quran will make positive energy more and more expanded in your home. I think I've already witnessed this evidence in my grandma's house. It was just like this. She was a pure mu'min, and she was so tranquil, and the home was always full with the recitation of Quran, and every angle in this home was a symbol of tranquility and serenity. So that's what I want to add about it. So what Dr. Marwa said is really touched my heart, with these great memories in my grandma's house. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khairan, dear Iman, and thank you so much for this kind of reflection. And definitely reciting Quran in our homes definitely add a huge have a huge impact on the quality of our homes when it comes to the how peaceful it can be and tranquil it can be by just having Quran recited at home. And the different kind of recitations also and how we are advised to do recitation in a kind of a beautiful manner, because that is also one part of Islam. Like we have to do it in a kind of a we have to add beauty in general. So beauty is part of our deen, alhamdulillah. So everything we do it with ihsan, and we try to do it in a good way. Definitely impact our body, our soul, our mind, and our places, alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. Let's see, Romana.
Rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.
Yes, you can ask a question.
Yeah, my question was, you said something about cats and dogs and positive and negative energy. And we are allowed to have cats at home, but as you said that they sit most where the negative energy is placed, and dogs, they move if there is a negative energy. But in Islam, we are allowed to have cats at home and not the dogs. So can you please explain in briefly, but in detail, that what is the difference and how do we organize these information? Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan, sister, for the important question. Yes, of course, we are also, we generally are advised not to have dogs at home because of different reasons. It's only for protection. If you have a garden, if you have a big house and you need it for safety and protection, then you can have it at the place, but we are not advised to have it close to where we pray or where we have our normal daily practice at home. So of course each one had to check their own sources about this. Cats, they enjoy sitting on negative spots because they gain actually their energy from this. There are plenty of sources that shows different animals and how they kind of interact with different negative and positive energy spots on Earth. It's just also to explain it a little bit more. When I say negative and positive energy, it's not just magic things that comes from under the Earth. The Earth layers contain of different grids, and with the underwater ground streams, with their movement and with the different kind of Earth layers, there are positive and negative vortex they are created. And that's why in ancient times I mentioned when they put the obelisks and when they put some of the precious stones in places to emit the energy to the soul surrounding, they know that this area had a positive spot. So at home, how you can detect if there is a positive or negative spot? Watch your cat. So try to avoid the places where she sits and enjoy her majority of time. She enjoys sitting in this place. But also be careful. It's not because she's sitting at your bed or sitting at your chair that this means that this is by default a negative spot. Because also cats, they like to sit in a place where it's warm and it's cozy. And normally after you move from your chair or from your bed, they like to sit on these places. But apart from this, try to notice where she sits in different places at home. Apart from those warm places that you sit in. So those are the negative spots. And try to purify those places by cleaning them all the time, by sprinkling salt in the corners, especially in the corners of the room or in this place where the cat used to sit. And try to have maybe one of the precious stones like amethyst and put it in that place. It also, or in any corner in the room, it also helps in purifying and kind of reducing the impact of negative energy in this space. So I hope I managed to cover your inquiry.
Jazakallahu khair.
If we don't have cats at our homes, how can we detect the negative spots?
Yeah, that's an important question. Normally, the negative spots are damp areas in the apartment, where areas you can also find like fungus or any kind of like similar to mushroom formation. When you find a lot of ants in a specific corner, but not the ants when they come like in seasonal time, when they go out from the caves and they seek food, but repetitive appearance of ants in a specific corner, and also like dampness in a specific corner, even if there is no water leakage or anything. So it's not like close to a bathroom or there's a pipe. So try to detect those places where you find dampness, you find like formation of molds and ants. So those are places where there's negative energy in the house, or negative vortex in the house. Thank you.
Did you get the answer? Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all these really beautiful questions as well. And again, a very big thank you to you, Sister Marwa. I think we all will take with us a lot of insights from this lecture that we will carry with us and benefit from, inshallah. And if you come up with questions afterwards that you want to ask Marwa, please feel free to email us and we can pass it on. And you will find the email address in the chat. And also, don't miss our next week's lecture on Sunday, the 9th of April, when we will meet to take part of our colleague brother Mujahid Sebastian Abbasi. He will hold a lecture called Fastan ur ett medicinskt perspektiv, fasting from a medical perspective. And that lecture will mainly be held in Swedish, but inshallah, like last week, we will try our best to also have a summary in English as well. And for those of you who have registered for this week's lecture, you don't have to register again to participate next week. But the rest of you, feel free to enter the chat and click on the link to register or follow our social media to get access. And again, we are very happy that so many of you have shown interest and wanted to attend to our lectures during Ramadan. It's truly an honor to meet all of you and to share this moment with you. And thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to you, Sister Marwa. Do you have something more you want to say before we say goodbye to everyone?
I would like to thank them. Thank you first, Yanni, for moderating this session. Thank you so much for your efforts and for doing this fantastic moderation. Jazakallah khairan kathiran. And thanks to everyone for giving the time to attend today. I hope you will be able to apply some of the tips in your place. And I also want to announce that we have an Islamic art workshop for therapy and healing that will be in May, the 20th and 21st of May, inshallah. The main instructor will be Brother Abdul Karim Mats Sidiberg, but for you only who are in Sweden, because it will be like physical in real life. We will share also like links for registration, inshallah, hopefully to see. There are like 3 places left. So I hope, inshallah, if you're interested, you can come and join this. Thank you so much, Yanni. Thanks to all Shifaa team for further efforts. Jazakumullah khairan.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And we will also announce the workshop on our social media. So please follow us and you will get more information there, inshallah. So take care, everyone. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.